Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. It is Monday, January 12th. This is the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School Board meeting, and we are here at Camel's Hump Middle School. I'm going to run through the agenda. Pat will take us through the roll call, and then we'll get the meeting started. So we have our community comments up first. We have a principal report from Jeremy Rector, a principal of Richmond Elementary School, which is on this campus. We have seconded motion of our budget for the next school year to approve, and then the annual meeting warning to approve. And then we have a policy, employee unlawful harassment policy to approve. We have our policy governance module to do, and then an update from the superintendent on the key findings from the listening sessions that were done this fall. Minutes from our last meeting, which was December 8th, and then we will have an executive session. Anybody have any modifications to the? Being none, Pat, can you take us through a roll call, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Tara Arneson.
Present.
Kevin Campbell.
Present.
Heather Chadwick.
Present.
Allison Conant. Nope. Stephen Diglio.
Here.
Edie Grenning.
Here.
James Granzo. Susan Lillick.
Here.
Sandra Limoges.
Here.
Kyle Magida.
Here.
Ethan Mara.
Here.
Stuart Morageau. Katie Nelson.
Here.
Lisa Pollock.
Present.
Helen Stoddard.
Here.
And student reps, Eli Wimet.
Here.
And Jack Connell.
Here.
All right, thanks everybody.
Great, thank you so much. Our next item is community comments. Are there any community comments? I'm not seeing anybody joining us in the room today. Anybody remote? Community comments.
Yeah, I have one.
You have a community comment?
Well, it's
You wait till other business if it's a
it's really light and more like fluff.
okay.
I'm glad that Nora's there. I just wanted to say on Friday was Community United basketball at MMU. It's something business. No,
Go ahead.
oh, I really appreciated the slogan that the basketball community is running with. And it's 5 towns, 1 heart. People have seen that. I just really appreciated that piece. I think it's very inclusive. And I just want to, like, regardless of if it's 5 towns, 50 towns, a state, a county, that idea of like working together and that collaboration, I think we really shined through on Friday. There was all sorts of community members there. Thank you, Nora, for shouting that out. But I love that slogan of 5 towns, 1 heart. That's all.
For the record, your name and your town.
Oh, Ethan Our Huntington. Thank you.
Well, then,
Any other
in the
community
same
comments?
vein.
No. Other business.
No, it's not new business. It's not, like, really. It's like kudos to the district.
This is all other business people.
It's great. Tara Arneson, Richmond. I have a 9th grader at MMU who came home on Friday thrilled that Bernie Sanders spoke to them. So for anyone who hasn't heard, Bernie was in our high school and Bernie sends out regular updates. I get those in my email, and he talked about his time at MMU and how engaged our students were. So I think it's just awesome.
Great. Any
I'm
other
sure the email
business at the beginning of the meeting? All right. Thank you, everybody. Jeremy.
We are feeling punchy tonight. Huh? You ready? It's only 6:30. Any questions? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeremy Rector. I'm the principal of Richmond Elementary School, and this is my 7th year here at MMUUSD, and it's been a pleasure. I am excited to share with you all some of the highlights from Richmond Elementary School. This was a very new format. I appreciated the format. It was robust in writing this annual report, but I can kind of go through and give you some of the highlights. Really, a lot of our primary focus this year, and not just based on our conversations from last year, but just in general, is continue to focus on belonging, sense of belonging, connection, and increasing that, right? Going back, the pandemic really kind of separated and isolated folks. And we've done a lot of work to kind of reestablish those community efforts and that sense of connection and belonging. So you can see that throughout the hallways and throughout a lot of the activities that we've done so far throughout the year and for the remaining of the year. In terms of some of the curricular aspects.
Yes.
I'll jump right in and talk about some of the literacy work we've been doing. I'm sure you guys have heard from all the other elementary schools, just the ARC, American Reading Company literacy program. It's our new K-4 program, and it's closely aligned with the science of reading. We're now halfway through, and it's been great. There's been some difficulties, right? Anytime you're building a ship while you fly, anytime you start with a whole curriculum, K-4, day one, there's some learning that's involved. But I would say that with grace and support to each other, a lot of our, and later I'll talk about, our MTSS, multi-tiered structures of support. Our guiding coalition, a team of teachers within the building, and our grade level collaborative teams have really stepped up and done a phenomenal job. Just the amount of support that they've provided to each other as we've analyzed not just the program, but the benefits of it, the things that aren't quite working. It's been phenomenal. And we've jumped in, head first. And I would say we've already seen some tremendous gains in the kiddos reading. And it's really, really exciting to see. In terms of mathematics, we've been, I think 2 years ago, we piloted the illustrative math program, which the middle school adopted, I believe, 2 years ago. We were kind of a little bit on their tails. And then last year we had a whole grade level do it. And this year we got multiple grade levels that are using the illustrative math program. We still have a couple grade levels that are in the investigations. With the illustrative work, it's really engaging and exciting math. It's problem-based, and some of the things that folks really appreciate, like the literacy component is decreased a bit. So sometimes in the investigations work, some of the barriers has been just this looks like a word problem sometimes. It's just really, not that there's anything wrong with it, but just really, really rich literacy-based math program, which has its benefit. Some of the pitfalls are if you're a struggling reader, all of a sudden you're a struggling reader and a struggling mathematician. And that can feel hard if in your thinking you understand the concept. The illustrative math is a lot of collaborative problem solving. Kids are working together in the board report. These guys were creating area models and tape on the ground. And it's just really exciting. And then they confer with each other. Hey, what are you learning? And then there's a lot of report out. One of the potential pitfalls of it is it does require a higher level of executive functioning skills, right? You've got to be able to have that comfort level, those communications, that kind of ability to get initiated. But again, with awareness, you can resolve that and support kiddos. So it's been really exciting to see and just to continue that growth at RES. SEL components, our goal for the end of this year is that all students will increase their understanding and demonstration of strategies. The following 4 SEL competencies. We're focusing on self-awareness and self-management. Those are 2 of the 5 core Castle competencies. I think 2 years ago, we created an SEL specific handbook. I love our handbooks. I inherited a lot of them. Many of them are 30, 40 pages, and some of them haven't been completely retooled yet. However, the SEL handbook, we went with the Apple approach. I think I really showcased that a couple years ago. It was like, I want it to say everything it needs to say in 5 pages. It's now up to 7 pages, which is I'm okay with. We're adding really, really critical work to it, but it's like if you hand something to an adult, they should be able to understand this really quickly and easily and implement it. So got the basics. It's really critical work. We also have maintained the regulation stations that I described last year. Just every single classroom or every single workspace, not just classroom, but every workspace has a set of standard tools. And what we do is we offer explicit instruction around regulation, around how to utilize these tools, and then help students to realize that wherever they are in the building, they have access and helping kids to learn that autonomy and the ability to self-regulate, which is across settings. Something that I'd like to point out that, I'm sure all the other elementary school principals did, we've expanded our recess time from 10 minutes to 40 minutes. We had a learning brief that we reviewed from Joelle Van Lent. She's a state psychologist, fabulous educator. And we kind of reviewed it as a admin team and then as individual staffs. And some buildings had, 20-minute recesses or a 30 and a 10 or whatever. So ideally the goal was, and the learning brief really kind of outlines the critical nature of play in 60 minutes of play. And really kind of the essence is, it takes 15 minutes for kiddos to just decompress, right? And to just exhale and figure out what the heck they want to do even. And right then all of a sudden we just pull the cord and yank them back inside, right, when they're getting settled. 40 minutes felt like something that we could all do universally across buildings. And so it's something that it was the next step, next iteration. What we did at RES with all the grade levels have 40 uninterrupted minutes. They're not split up into 2 different sections. Just get out and like exhale, decompress, and then play. I have anecdotal data that we don't have nearly as many kiddos that are struggling to enter the building. And so that's something we kind of lost some of our data tracking metrics. We've switched to Power School across all settings, which seems like a great idea if it's working. So our typical data analysis tool is Swiss for behavior, and we don't have access to that data anymore. So I'm curious, but anecdotally, it just feels like kiddos are re-entering in a much more regulated state, in a much more comfortable state. I would say that some teaching staff have said when the weather's acclimate and indoor recess can feel a little trickier at 40 minutes. However, I think that's just an area of opportunity for us to learn and figure out how to do that a little better. So play has been a big addition, adding that extra time. Finally, in terms of SEL, last year I was kind of describing how we were expanding some of the all school meetings, really getting back to those settings. This year, it's almost, I would say pre-pandemic or better. Our school counselor is partnering with grade levels or classrooms again, and that students are facilitating the all school assemblies. It's back to what it looked like pre-pandemic. We're doing a lot to kind of target those themes that are kind of connected to the whole school. That's still an area of opportunity for us to kind of dial that in a little bit more. But it's just really exciting to see that level of student engagement and participation. MTSS data and PLCs. We've always had pretty strong collaborative team structures in terms of timing and schedule. In terms of function, I would say it hasn't functioned to the degree that it has this year, and really a testament to JES and the other elementary school principals, we've collaborated more than I've ever experienced. In this past year, we've worked really hard to align our practices, and it's been extremely refreshing. And that really has evidenced itself at RES in this PLC format, where we're bouncing different collaborative team structures and guiding coalition, which the guiding coalition is representation from each of your grade level teams. So those guiding coalition agenda minutes are often collaborated between the administrators who are bouncing ideas off each other and you know, helping to facilitate those to their best capacity. So then, you know, as difficult as it was with you know, just jumping in with a whole ARC program all at once, it's been unifying. It's been unifying across our Spanish immersion program, because the materials aren't translated or aren't something else. It's all the same stuff, just in Spanish and in English. So it really leads to much more fruitful and beneficial team conversations. It's not so wonky or joining them like, oh, you're doing something completely different. There are nuances and differences, but it's a lot more alignment. So that's the data and PLC components. Community involvement. Thank you for everybody that came to the harvest meal. At every meal I announce that it's my favorite day of the year. I mean that sincerely. I love having everybody in and serving food. It's just amazing. And I would say, I mean, you know, Mr. G, it's not something we struggle with, is like getting folks in. I think that kind of the next area and opportunity is kind of expanding some of the field trips. So we guarantee that everybody has access to a Flynn trip, which again, I recall as a young Vermonter, you know, going to the Flynn very early on, is just super exciting and engaging. And it's something that we want to make sure that every kiddo do. And so, you know, beyond that, what is that sense of community, and what does each grade level do, and how do we get out and connect with our community? And, you know, what does it look like for kindergarten versus fourth grade, and what does that continue? And that's another area of opportunity for us with that engagement part. Student voice and autonomy. You know, we've got students again leading the all school morning meetings and facilitating more of their learning. The illustrative math material is a lot more facilitating and describing and sharing and connecting for kiddos. I showcased the new Gaga pit that we had installed, and that came about as our annual third grade writing assignment. The third grade writing, I love all the writing assignments, but it was always kind of, Mr. Director, here's what you need to do. That was just like always what it was, you know. And then I think it was 2 years ago, you know, a student asked me in the hallway, I was like, what would you do? Right? Like, and then it started to kind of gain some momentum. And then I went in and presented to the whole class and was like, all right, like everybody asked me what I would do, but like, what if you could write about what you would do to improve the campus? And that planted the seed. And then last year I went into every single third grade and said, all right, guys, you're going to write about what you would do to improve the campus. That's our annual writing piece now. It's if you had the money, if you had the time, the effort, the energy, if you had my position, how would you improve this campus? And that's kind of it started out with what would you do for the playground? And it's kind of morphed to how do you make this a better place, a more inclusive place, a more exciting. Kids are still really focused on the playground, but you know, we're generating a lot of really cool ideas. You know, things like pizza ovens that kind of bring people to community events. There's a lot of ideas that are being generated, and that's exciting. Professional learning, staff collaboration. I can kind of share. I don't know if you want to see. This is kind of a sample of our ARC intervention kit. If you were a part of the tour, is warehouse in this big bookshelf in our staff room, and it was tricky, right? Originally, so it's 2 kits in English and 1 kit in Spanish, and ideally every individual kit. That bodes a difficult scenario for 19 different classrooms and 3 kits. And it's just an area of opportunity where we came together and said, how could we distribute these resources or utilize these resources in a way that recognizes what we have. We're not going to belabor on what we don't have, but also helps us to move forward and support kids. So we created this kind of interesting and unique system where we took the two kits and broke them down and then kind of dispersed them. So instead of having 8 kits and 8 kits, I think we split it up to like 3, 4, and 5, or like, you know, we split up the size. So depending on how many kids are in your group, you can pick out a kit that has, you know, 3 books in it. This is an example of the types of materials and resources. One thing that I do appreciate about ARC is kind of one-stop thing. We have everything at our fingertips if we have all the resources, but it comes aligned, decodable books that are engaging. The books that we looked at in terms of insects, the kids were just absolutely excited to kind of learn, like in the 2nd grade, they were learning all about different types of insects, and it merges kind of the science with reading, which makes it really engaging and exciting. You know, they were really clear, it's not a science curriculum, right? It is science-based material, but it gives an opportunity to dovetail the concepts and the materials a little bit more. So this is, if you're interested, you can kind of, I can show you this later. I don't want to get into that. It's not a lesson. I wrote it on the top. Ed Camp was exciting. This is the 2nd year in a row we've done a SEL Ed Camp at RES, a house for the district. Super exciting. And the way that works is we had the last year and then this year we had a host come in that was kind of the main speaker. And then there are breakout sessions, and teachers, you know, each of the principals are kind of begging or asking folks to, you know, hey, our teacher, absolutely fabulous at responsive classroom practices and structures. And, you know, we just asked her, hey, would you lead a workshop on that? She was like, yeah, like, what would that look like? And we kind of talked it through a little bit. She had like 25 teachers in there learning from, actually, you know, it was a very collaborative approach how she presented it. Just really exciting to see teachers leading workshops for other teachers. It's this last year we had 100% positive reflection on the experience and the value of it. And this year we had near 100%. One person on a scale to 6 had it was a 3. So that's on the slight negative. I won't say 100%, but it's really well appreciated. Last budget investments. I'm really excited about that sidewalk out front, like too excited. And then this summer we added ramps off the stoops. It's just such a simple, small solution that just ensures that everyone has access. And I just recall on my first few years, we had a student with mobility needs, and you know, questions were like, well, how are we gonna, you know, what are we gonna do in an emergency? And I was like, I will pick the student up. But like, it just feels silly that those are the answers. It's, you know, 2025. And so any way we can make universal access to every point in the building is going to be our ongoing goal. We had the sidewalk that came out the side by the cafeteria a few years ago, and that cleared up nearly 50% of the building. Then we came across the front of the building, just added the ramps. Next phase is just swing around the back of the building, and then all the classrooms, every single room can get access in and out safely, despite any kind of weather incident. So in closing, I'm really excited to be here. I went way longer, but I blame the report format. So we'll do it long.
Any questions for Jeremy?
Thank you for the tour. Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, the total number of students on IEPs 504 and education support team plans is about 41% of your student body, if I do the math correctly. And I know that the American Reading Company is based on the science of reading, and that your anecdotal comments are that it's going well and data's looking good. I'm just curious with, you know, what did the first trimester data actually show? If you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So data's been tricky for the last couple of years. And when you talk about, you know, IEPs, kind of the standard for accessing an IEP has changed. And so some of this has become kind of difficult to analyze. What I would say is looking at kind of our STAR analysis tool, we've seen some growth coming into this winter data point. I'm like a data point that I can share with you are kindergartners. Nearly 100% of our kindergartners already know all of their letter ID and sounds, which typically we wouldn't have even taught all of them until much, much later than this. So the fact that not only we've taught it, but that we have near 100% mastery just bodes for the future. What feels a bit tricky is because we've been utilizing a lot of different literacy programs or parts of programs to piece it together in very thoughtful ways. We all have implemented ARC second grade, third grade, day one. Now, as a second grade teacher, the program assumes that you came in with, in December, already knowing all your letter ID and sound in kindergarten. And so there's a bit of a gap, but I would say it's been amazing to see students respond, and across the board in every grade level, teachers have said how at first there was a lot of panic. To be perfectly blunt, that the materials were going to be too complicated, like too much for our kiddos and where they were. And that's not the case. It's not what we've seen. We've seen a lot of students, the majority of students really rise and demonstrate proficiency success. Just before coming over here, I was actually working with South End Special Ed Coordinator Kaylin Perkins, and we were looking at not just the success of kids, but the growth. There's a growth analysis tool that you can look at using STAR. And what's amazing to see is we're seeing tremendous amount of growth for our kiddos. Not necessarily everybody is on grade level, but those who aren't on grade level are often in the high growth area. And then being able to analyze that and see the number of kiddos who are in low growth and low skill set is decreasing pretty dramatically. It feels like it's exciting. I don't have the specific numbers to cite though.
That's helpful. Thank you.
But it's been great to see.
Great.
Yeah.
Sandra, I'll also just add you've touched on something you're going to hear about when Jen and I do a report to the board. Jen Cote, our special services director, because of the changes in eligibility routes for IEPs, now we actually have substantially more students with an IEP and an EST. So those
Right. There's redundancies in those numbers. Yeah. Thank you.
There might
historically you'd add them up.
be IEPs and 504s for health too, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jerry, this, you may not be able to answer this easily, and that's okay. That's okay if you want to just say that's for another time. But you and I both know, because we served on the immersion committee together the last year and a half or so, that there have been some challenges or some perceived challenges, particularly at RES with the immersion program. I'm just curious, sort of in brief, how you feel like things are at this juncture, kind of halfway through this current school year.
It's not fair. I am very jaded. I think that things are going well. I also didn't complete that survey. There were some pretty negative things written in that by some of our community members, which was kind of shocking. Internally, I've never seen our staff so cohesive, which is exciting. I think a lot of it, for how tricky some of the ARC stuff is and was, it unified people. I mean, we were all in an, excuse my language, an oh heck kind of situation. I cleaned that up, Sarah. Thank you. It's another chuckle. Right? And so I've seen people collaborating that hadn't in the past or didn't know that there was common ground to even work on. And so that's been just amazing. We've done a lot of work intentionally. We did, there's a belonging survey that we do for students. We're working right now with our anti-bias, anti-racist council to generate a belonging survey for staff. right? Like oftentimes we're really focused on kiddos,
Cool.
which is the correct place to focus, but we're putting something together for staff. We've done a lot in terms of just celebrating and recognizing. We make celebration part of our collaborative team meetings. It's the first thing that we do, where we go around the table and just, what's something really exciting and something that you're proud of. We just had a staff celebration just before winter break, trying to really recognize how hard this job is and just how hard everyone's working and how we all support each other internally. And I would also say our kids are great. Like, I don't see maybe some of the divide that earlier. I mean, I don't want to be naive. I know it's still there, but we do a lot more kind of intentional grouping. Some of the mistakes that I had made a number of years ago, like I had said, where we had aligned collaborative team meetings vertically for SI, right? So our Spanish immersion teachers were working together. It made sense to me at the time, was really isolating. And we stopped doing that immediately, right? Like once you're like, oh man, whoops, like that's a mistake. And so I see a lot of regrowth, a lot of connection. The building feels a lot lighter. I mean, some anecdotal data, our staff attendance rate is a lot higher. We have a lot less absences. Our student attendance rate is a lot higher. Like all of those are positive signs of a healthy community.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thinking about not just a building leader, but a district leader, and thinking about ARC, what's sort of your hope, dreams, thoughts around when does ARC not feel like you're implementing and is fully up and running and doing its thing?
I mean, today it's up and running. It's doing its thing comfortably. For teachers, we're not there yet, but it's there. And I think that any of the apprehension or kind of the whispering, like I'll just close my door and do, like it's not happening. There's not a lot of room for that, right? I think to do it comfortably, just so like we tried as an admin team. We really paved the way in terms of professional development opportunities and time. All like in the spring of last year, we said, if we're committing to this, all of our early releases are going to literacy. That stinks. Like, we were going to focus on SEL, growth and development and support. Everything's got to go to supporting teachers with literacy. Everything's got to go to like all of our full day professional developments. All of those have to go to like unpacking units, to decompressing, understanding, learning them. And it's been hard. We've sometimes been just a millisecond ahead of the curve, or even on the face of the curve. And that feels hard for a teacher with 18 plus kiddos in your space, and you're learning the thing as they are. That does not help you be your best self. And so that's acknowledged. I think that the administration team, the superintendent, and even the teacher, like we've learned to give each other more grace, and the importance of those collaborative team meetings, right? Where in the past, maybe people were like, well, what are we all sitting around this room for? Oh, we're analyzing data, and it felt forced. Now people are like, all right, how are your kids doing on this? How'd they do on that core phonics assessment? Great. What's the lagging skill that they're working on? I think the next steps, next level, and this is what I was talking to Ms. Perkins about. How do we get elementary age teachers to, and I only say this because I come with that high school lens where like the gaps that I were facing were big, right? And sometimes as an elementary teacher, it feels like, well, the gaps feel like a barrier, and we don't know how to adjust tier one curriculum at times. And tier one is just like the first layer of instruction. Sometimes, and I don't attest this to ARC or a lack of professionalism in our teaching staff. They're amazing. It felt like, here's lesson 5. I've got to be on lesson 5. Next day, I got to be on lesson 6. I got to be on lesson 7 because that's the district pace, and that's what we're doing. Doesn't matter that 50% of the room isn't getting it. I've got to keep on district pace. We've got to get to a point where we're looking at screener data at the beginning of the unit to understand what to prioritize. If 80% of your kids don't get it before you even start the unit, that's something I need to do. And if 80% already understand this thing, that's the thing I can skip. It's not the last three, sections because I didn't get time to it. I have to, and so helping people to get in the front seat where they're analyzing the unit ahead of time and then making thoughtful decisions based on the kids in their room, like that's when we're really going to be firing on all cylinders. And the gap to that is like we just handed people their unit 3 books the other day and they're about to teach it in a week. It's some of it's going to take time, but I do think that there's some pedagogical practice that can shift because I think that the old programs were very linear where you went to the next page, and there's this de facto mechanism where you feel pressured by the district because the report card says I have to be at this point at this time, and the XYZ says I have to be at that point, and you lose sight of the kids in front of you. And that's hard when 50% of the kids in your room don't understand something, but you've got to keep going because the district expects it. None of the teachers feel good about that. Nobody feels good about it. People just don't know that they can do something different. And I think that's where we've worked really well with our coaches and our teachers to say, the kids in front of you are the most important thing. How do we look at the end of unit or end of year assessment and then backwards design? And how do we patch this? But ideally, at some point, we're using screener data to analyze how to conduct our units, and then it aligns with our summative assessments. That's when we're firing all cylinders. Yeah.
I'm going to take the last question if folks are okay with that. I want to say thank you for including Katie in your presentation. It's lovely.
I know.
That's great. I love that.
And twice in your presentation, you mentioned not having access to data. And we're, as a board, going to be relying on data to make all kinds of decisions and to be making sure that we're evaluating what's happening in our buildings.
Yeah.
How concerned do we need to be that you're concerned that you don't have data?
I don't want to blame myself. I love data and data analysis. I authentically, as my science teacher hat. As wonky as it was, the VCAT, I could run a report on that. I knew how to get the pictures and the information that I needed, and I knew how to get it longitudinally. I am, and this is a personal struggle, struggling with the Power School, the Renaissance. Like, we've got a lot of different data in a lot of different areas. And I reached out to Jeff Wallace the other day. He is amazing. And even with VCAT, there was a point where I was like, come sit with me. You sit with me for a half hour, just get me a little under the hood, and then I can figure out. And I was creating all kinds of reports that, I don't know. I think that there's, at this point, there may be a barrier to Power School. I don't know what the gap is. I don't know if I just haven't invested enough time. When I can look through, some of the tools that we have, Renaissance, it's, in my mind, it's something that I'm trying to close the personal gap. And I don't know if it's a gap just in the available resource or the mechanism. I don't know if, I know that there's been some difficulties with Power School in terms of syncing data. And I know that our team is working really hard to close those gaps. So I think it's somewhere. I just don't know how to hit that button to create that graph.
Concerned but not panicked is what I heard you say.
Yeah, yes. I really appreciate the data. I mean, if it goes too much, you need some.
We need it. We can't do our jobs without it.
Yeah. I feel similarly. I can just sometimes take a deep breath and be like, okay, but my job keeps going. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you here. You're welcome to stay with us. You don't have to. You're welcome to head out. And we're going to move on.
I was invited to stay later today. Is that not?
You're welcome to.
No, I mean
You're not
afterward.
required. You're welcome to. You're not required.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I will, on that note, say thank you all so much.
Leave the cheatables because I'm interested. In case I get a little bored later.
I can't tell if you're being sincere.
You can bring it back tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll leave it. Yeah. This is the ERLA toolkit. This is one of the assessment tools that we use. to determine learning. And this is an intervention kit that corresponds. I'm going to grab my stuff. I want to say thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thanks.
And anyone can reach out anytime. And I like giving tours.
We have a seconded motion from the Finance and Facilities Committee, which is our 2026-2027 budget. I'm going to turn this over to John and Nicole and listen in.
Well, I only had one piece of homework between our last meeting and this one, so I'm happy to report out on that. And I'm also just happy to share that there's been real minimal change in any of the figures that we've shared with you all in the last meeting. So Nicole and some other people have done some incredible work on our weighted student counts. There's a lot, you may have seen it in the news. There was lots of angst in school districts across the state. People were missing hundreds of students from the data sets that the agency was giving them. But our team had done an incredible amount of work in the past several years. And so they were like ready to go on day one. And we did not. So that data we gave you last time was highly accurate. And I think we maybe found like 1.5 kids. It is true. And I will say I've never worked with a team that was so focused on every fraction of a kid with the way the student weights work. You know, you can end up with 0.14 increments for students, and finding those has a huge financial impact on us as a district. So super grateful to Nicole and Wendy Garapi for doing that work for us. So some data was requested in the last meeting, which was just really since the merger, what has the trend in the budget been? And so since we've been fully formed as a merged district, our average, if you average all our increases out over that time, has been 4.89%. And CPI, the Northeast CPI for that same time has been 3.84%. So we're about a percentage point above that inflationary measure. More than 30% of the 4.89 is actually just health insurance increases. So if you were to, and this took a lot of math, but if you were to go back and take out our health insurance increases and just put in the Northeast regional health care or health insurance CPI rate, we would actually be right. We would be tracking right at CPI. We were like 0.08 over. So that's close enough that for me, I would round that up and call it the same. But we are, as we've talked a lot about, we're stuck with no control over our health insurance situation. So that was my homework. But other than that, the actual percentages in here have not changed in terms of the overall increase or the plan for that moving forward. The data that I was referencing earlier is really just a change on the back end and how that impacts the tax rate. And that is that down like 0.11 or something like that, Nicole? Is that right?
What figure was that?
The tax rate, the district tax
Can we
rate.
do the
Yeah.
presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So that said, Nicole.
Which one would you want me to jump into? Do we want to go over the draft summary? We have the PowerPoint presentation linked. A lot of that is probably stuff folks have already seen. I can talk through.
So since we have publicized this as a time for the community to get an understanding of the budget, I think we should go through the whole PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought Brett was on.
Okay, so you jump in anytime you want. Nicole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll remember there's some important context for us heading into this meeting. We have a tentative agreement with the association, which we're hoping is ratified soon. We did have an operational shortfall this year that we're carrying forward, so we filled it this year, but we have to account for that in next year's budget. And then we do know that health insurance rates are going up 7.4% for us for next year. And relative to the point I was just making a moment ago, that's not a negotiable expense for us. That's negotiated at the state level and is common statewide. When we get into the actual education finance system, it's, everyone's talking a lot about ed finance these days. And part of that, I think, is that our system is so complex. But this is a graphic that I like because I think it kind of shrinks it down to something that's easier to understand. And the point here is that individual decisions in different districts impact everybody because all of our education finance system is pooled together at the state level. So we control our expenditure budget. In this example, I always like to say we're District B. So let's pretend we're District B. We're level funded, so no increase in the budget. And neighboring districts, District A increased their expenditures and District C decreased their expenditures. Because that increase from the first district is more than the overall, the decrease or holding flat in other districts, the overall amount requested from the ed fund goes up. And so the net impact there would be that tax rates or any number of different factors would change. And then the end result would be that tax rates would rise to accommodate that increase in the ed fund. And so the point really here is that there's a lot we can control, like our expenditures, but there's also a lot of things that we can't control. And so this is when I usually like to point out that we're going to focus really on what we can, which is our expenditure budget and matching our services to student needs within the constraints of the budget. But we do get lots of questions about all of the things we can't control. And one of them really is about things like CLA or student count. And so those are all ways that affect funding across the state. Student count, you heard me reference earlier with Nicole. If we lose students compared to the rest of the state, then we would get fewer funds. If we gain students compared to the rest of the state, we would get more funds. And then with CLA, the same thing can happen. The state monitors the grand list values in towns and then adjusts the common level of appraisals to make sure the value you're being taxed on is based off market data, not just what assessors have on a grand list. And part of that is illustrated in this chart. So the straight line is our actual enrollment. That's our actual head count over time. We have a very stable enrollment. And we see signs now actually of a building bubble coming for us. So we have increased numbers in our pre-K eligible age group in our catchment area. And we have increases in our pre-K age group and in our catchment area. And so those are all hopeful signs for us. The other line just showcases the change in the way students have been counted by the state over time. So historically, the state used what was called equalized student counts. So that's the lower line. And then going into FY25, they changed to weighted student counts, and that's how they measure it now. And so you might see this line and say, oh, we gained students and that looks good for us. But actually, most districts saw a significantly higher jump than we saw. And that's because the new formula has an extra weight for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, or the state calls them socioeconomic status eligible. So those students count, they have an additional weight. I think it's 1.03. So they actually show up in your student counts as 2.03 students compared to a student who's not eligible. And this is the way the state is adjusting for funding differences across the state and the increased cost that it takes to educate students that come from backgrounds like that. So while our enrollment is very stable overall, we do see swings from grade level to grade level.
Just so you know,
Oh, sure.
we're all reacting because the slideshow that is embedded in the agenda is not the same one that you're presenting. You have a few extra slides.
Oh,
So we're great. We're happy to have the extra
Okay.
slides, but we'll have to link that in so folks can have access to it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's just watching.
It's
everybody around the
got
room.
more, so it's good.
Yeah, more slides
Okay.
is great.
So our overall enrollment is pretty consistent year to year. Where we see big swings is from one grade level to another. And we have a long tradition in our district here that I can't take any credit for, of really being very flexible with staffing to accommodate that. And so you heard Jeremy talk earlier about collaboration between the elementary principals. That is the reason that we're able to keep costs consistent between all 5 elementary schools of wildly different sizes. It's the way that they pool student services, and it's the way that they share staff between their buildings. When you get to the bigger schools like the middle schools, it's a little bit easier, and at the high school, it's much easier to absorb those bubbles, so long as they don't get too big. I always like to show a slide like this. So this context is out there. The yellow is our state comp and the green is our district data. And this is the percentage of your FTE. So that's your full-time equivalency. You can think about that as our personnel count. So this is the percentage of our staff in each of these categories. And to me, I always say a budget tells a story of what you value. And this tells a pretty good story to me. So you can see we're a little underweight in teachers, in paraprofessionals, and in leadership, which would be the principals and the district office administrators. And then we're overweight in support, which is a general education measure. So those are support services from general education, and student services, which are typically special ed services that are provided for students. And so this, if I were to tell this as a story, I would say that we have made the decision to accept slightly higher class sizes and to go lean on leadership and paraprofessionals so that we can offer more services from licensed teachers and specialists to students. There is a little bit of a distortion of the data because the support measure also includes transportation services and things like that, but it's a negligible impact on a graph of this size. But I always feel like I have to call that out. And I also say I did this graph for all of the past 5 years, and it is the same in every year. So it's a pretty consistent story for us as district. I heard an awful lot about perceived differences in staffing between school buildings. And so I could make this slide any number of different ways, but this was to respond to a pretty constant theme I heard from my listening sessions when I came to the district and was meeting with parents and community members across the district. So you can see on the right, we have Jericho Elementary and RES grouped together, typically referred to in my listening sessions by parents as the big elementary schools. And then you have Brewster Pierce, Smiley, and Underhill grouped together, consistently referred to in those listening sessions as the small schools or the little schools. Although you would be surprised to know if you comp us against the rest of the state, only Smiley would really qualify as a small school. But there was this perception that surfaced over and over again that we had significantly more staff at the 2 big elementary schools. And so what this graph shows you in the lighter blue would be our target ratio. So if we weight our student count and we weight our staff count so that paraprofessionals are included in the count with teachers, the target would be about 10 staff members or 10 weighted students per staff member for an elementary school. And both categories of school are slightly more efficient than the target. And I can tell you any way that you kind of slice this data, there's no statistically significant difference between any of our elementary schools and their staffing levels compared to each other. And that's actually, again, that goes back to that collaboration that Jeremy referenced and that I mentioned. Historically, the schools have made great use of multi-grade classrooms and flexible staffing models to move with the student counts. That does not, however, say that programming is the same at every school. It just means they're all getting their fair share of resources. consistent example that came up was the enrichment programs at Jericho and Richmond, which have a full-time staff member attached to them. And I did hear a consistent theme in some of my listening sessions was a desire for some of the smaller schools to have a program like that. The reality is that it just would be very staff intensive to do given the number of students who are there. And so those decisions are made at the building level during budget season. Secondary is super easy. The target's a little different because secondary schools are much more efficient for staffing given the schedules that they run and the way that they team students. And there's no difference really between the ratios at any of our 3 secondary schools, Camel Sound, Browns River, or the high school, which is great.
Jump in here if you want.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So, this is just providing some high level context to how we really, what drives our budget, and kind of to give you a sense of what really moves the needle when we're questioning, making hard decisions around the budget. So, just a visual graphic here to show us, you know, what the salaries and wages and benefits for the district constitutes on our budget, and that's 80%. So again, when we're talking about how we move the needle when making any big changes in the budget, this is one of the big areas.
Sorry, on this one, this might be interesting to see over time, especially if healthcare is taking up a greater percentage of the.
It's been 75 to 80% of the budget as long as I've been on the board, but sure, like that.
Or the absolute numbers then. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
John and I were just talking earlier today, actually, and if you want to share some of that information at some point during the meeting, just looking at the last 4 or 5 years, really what those percentage increase in health plans were and what that dollar amount equaled for the last couple fiscal years. And I think it was anywhere between 680 to just shy of 1.1 million, just the increase in health insurance alone driving the budget.
Yeah. So I haven't done it in terms of a graph like this, but I imagine if you went back to that data point I referenced earlier for our first merger year, it's likely to be close to the same percentage, but I think benefits would probably be somewhere between 12 and 15% versus the 23 we have there now.
Yeah. This is a bar over time.
Yep. Yeah.
When we first started the budget process, we presented to the Finance and Facilities Committee kind of as our starting point what a level service budget would look like as a percentage increase to help them guide the conversation of, you know, setting targets and in making those decisions. So this is, again, just a visual of what that level service budget would be. And that was a 7.46% increase.
And I'll just chime in. So I know we've reviewed it all as a group, but because we're recording this meeting to share this part of the presentation, I'll just reiterate, we use 2 levels when we talk about budget often. There's level service, which is the cost is variable, but we keep and maintain 100% of the services that we're doing right now or we're offering right now. And then level funded often gets brought up, and that is when the funding doesn't change, so 0% increase or decrease, and you modify the services to meet that budget target. So this would be the level service. Yeah. So when we model costs, so at a level service budget, and we're modeling staffing impact, you look at your average cost, so salary plus benefits. And so for professional staff, for one of our teachers, that's just over 102, or actually just under $103,000. When you model cuts, when we're looking at what the impact of cuts with staffing, you can't use that number because of the collective bargaining agreements and the standard norm for those across the state and most of the country is that your teachers with the least amount of seniority are the ones who are subject to the reduction in force first. So that means you have to actually look at what it costs with them, and their costs are much lower than the average cost. So average cost for a teacher in their first 5 years is $58,211, which is a significant swing from the average cost across the system. And then support staff, the average cost for the ESP contract is $61,326. This is actually an interesting kind of paradox here because members of our support staff contract are paid less, but their benefits choice is different than teachers in the first 5 years. So that actually is the driver and makes them more expensive in this case than teachers in their first 5 years.
Similar thing here. This might be interesting to also have the average benefit breakdown for teacher and for first 5 teacher, because I'm guessing you're going to see a difference between average and first 5.
In terms of what they're selecting for benefits?
Just the average benefits for the teacher in the first 5 years is probably different than the average benefit for the teachers.
Yep. So we've looked at it. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but teachers in their first 5 years are typically on a single health plan. Teachers on a whole, when we look at them as a group, are typically on a family plan. Significant cost swing.
Have you noticed this year, and I don't know if you have this information yet, more people changing their health plans to a family plan since all of the decreased federal supports to, I've heard in other school districts that, and with all the federal job loss and the federal supports being decreased, that they have more teachers being the responsible party for ensuring that their whole family has insurance. And I'm curious if we've noticed that in our district yet or not.
I haven't. I wouldn't necessarily be the first line of that information.
Question for a different person.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So with the finance subcommittee, what we tried to do is to make it very concrete when we looked at the impact of different budget models. And so we were able to model very quickly what level funded 0% increase in costs would look like in terms of necessary cuts, and what level service would look like in terms of increase in expenses. And then originally we moved off of the level funded target to a 3% increase target. And anywhere between that 3% and the 7.46 for level service, this rule held true where every percent change along that line was roughly equivalent to 10 FTE. When you get below 3%, you start reducing or laying off teachers who are beyond the 5th year of seniority, so that rule breaks. But at 3%, between 3% and 7.4%, for 6%, that rule holds. And really what we were trying to figure out was this difference of 2.7 million, or about 45 staff members. And so this conversation went over several meetings. I will say I think this is a really, really hard conversation because we're not just talking about an arbitrary percentage or dollar amount. We're really talking about people's lives. And for us, that is beyond just employees' lives. We're talking about the impact that they make on the students that come into the building every day. So we shifted off of this, and
as a result of those many conversations, the Finance and Facilities Committee left us with a target of 6%, and we came in at 5.99%. And I will say, for folks in the room or folks listening or listening after the fact, linked in the agenda is summary with comments and PDF detail of the budget with comments, because what you're seeing right here for purposes of fitting it on the screen are operating expenses just as one line item. We present it in that summary, the attached summary, in the format that folks are more used to seeing: curriculum, general instruction, special ed, transportation, etc. But just for purposes of fitting it on this screen, it's condensed, but the detail does live in the agenda.
And this budget represents a $860,000 cut from the level service budget. So, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the slide. And we achieved that. So we had a $300,000 operating margin built into the budget, where the intent was to use that for capital purposes. We have, so Nicole was able to work out a deal with the Vermont Bond Bank. We have 4 near maturity bonds and what that means for us is that the payment actually occupies, or it represents a significantly high percentage of the principal balance that's owed. And we landed on an agreement. We instituted a budget freeze for this financial year through June, and we're using the savings from that to pay off those 4 bonds, which reduces the need to lay off as many teachers as we would have to going into next year. And that leaves us with about $380,000 in cuts that we're looking to make for next year. If that was accounted for entirely by headcount, that would be about 6.5 FTE. What we're working on right now is the kind of programmatic and non-human resources ways that we can achieve that savings. And we did have an extensive multi-meeting conversation about the use of the fund balance. So we have a bit of money in our capital reserves and a bit of money in a fund balance, about $700,000 in both, give or take. And we ended up at the finance committee recommending not doing that, although that was a hard decision for the group to make because we are currently significantly below the target balances for those types of funds, especially given the age of our physical plant and the capital needs that we know we have coming up with the district.
I just asked quick slide before when you were talking about the Vermont Bond Bank, because I watched some fascinating testimony with the bond bank, and there was some conversation about the state basically paying off some of those loans. And it's overall, when you take out Burlington, there is a pretty manageable amount of money that is bonded right now. Is that at all? I mean, like, and I know we've talked about in the past about doing a bond to do some of the capital improvements. Is that kind of in the back of your head too, even though paying off these near mature bonds?
Yeah.
Riveting stuff.
Actually, it is. I love this.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure what is going to come from that conversation. If we had to decide right now, I would be really hesitant to bank on that happening.
Yeah.
But the way that this actually works is it's not so much us. It's not like if you pay off a car loan or a mortgage earlier, we're not actually making the direct payment to the people who hold the notes. We're making the payment to the Vermont Bond Bank, and then they absolve us of that debt, but they hold that money in the form of escrow account. And so if any of this does actually come to pass and the state does pay off people's bonds, then those monies are held in escrow accounts for our benefit and would return to us. And then just for us to know, depending on when that happens, so if it happens, if that happens after the budget is set and we're moving forward, it would likely be returned to the taxpayers in the form of some kind of application of surplus in a future year. So,
Now we move into the really riveting stuff. The tax rate calculation, which folks I know you're saying, but Allison and folks in this room will be happy to know that what you are looking at here is an apples to apples comparison with what you saw last year. So unlike the last 2 years, no significant changes. So that said, this is using the most current property yield from the state. Getting straight to the bottom line, the change in the homestead tax rate is a 14-cent increase year over year, or about 9.46% pre-CLA.
And this reaches the point in the presentation where when we switch slides, we're talking about data that we actually don't have any control over anymore, right? So we control, arguably, until we get to that education spending amount, And then, the yield is set outside of our purview. But we can finagle the top line here depending on what we want targets to be. But then when we get outside of this district tax rate, then we're really talking about things totally outside of our control, like the common level of appraisal being applied to towns.
Nicole, in our December meeting, when the legislators were there, you pointed out that the ed spending per pupil rate is showing 15,778. How much of that goes directly to insurance? Did you say it was like $3,500?
Yeah, it's probably around, it's a little closer to the $3,000 number, but yes. Yeah, it's a
really
significant-
like 12,500 is really for education.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, that like stuck with me, and
Yeah.
So I explain it again.
So the third number there, we have our education spending, and then we divide that by our number of long-term weighted ADM, and we come up with what the district spends essentially per pupil of our ask from the ed fund. And when we were having a conversation with the legislatures about the healthcare cost crisis, essentially, and of that 15,778 that we spend per pupil, approximately $3,000 of that is driven by healthcare costs.
Which, when you think back to that pie chart, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's just contextualized like this. It's clear.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I feel like
it really resonated with me, the way you put it, because I had not heard anyone put it that way before, and it sticks.
I feel like the other thing that we have to note is that we still have an 11-cent discount on our tax rate. And we're going to lose about 3 cents of that every year until we don't have it anymore. So 4 more years of it. And
From the pupil weighting.
from the pupil weighting change,
Doesn't
that's significant.
Doesn't it decrease a couple of cents every year?
About 3.
20%, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what
Through
14 cents last year, and now it's 11. Okay, thank you.
And if we didn't have that decrease, we would have had
It would be the 178.
Right.
That would be our tax rate.
but the net change every year would have been something closer to 6%, 7% than 10% change in homestead dead.
I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So because the discount is reduced over time, it amplifies any increase in a year that there's a reduction.
3 cents of the increase year over year was statutory set 5 years ago.
It's just another gift from Act 127. Sorry.
John was thinking we'd jump right into CLA next, but we have that.
That's true.
Just sticking with tax rates for a minute, just so you can look at sort of what the trend has been for the district over the last 6 years. Focusing really on the 23 and 24, kind of where we saw that dip, just to remind folks that that was when there was a pretty good surplus in the ed fund that resulted in significantly higher yields those years. So the yield this year being, I think it was 88.49. I mean, I think we saw $13,000 and $15,000 yields in those years. So that really helped to drive the tax rate down. And then,
Nicole, do you know what those drivers for that surplus was? Was it like big lottery years or?
The lottery is like $3 million. It's lots.
COVID relief funds.
COVID relief funds.
And this was also pre-Act 127, so this is before the student weights changed as well. Which actually you can see super clearly that started to change in FY 25, and then you can see the tax rate start going up after that.
And last year we saw a pretty significant increase too, but many of you will remember exhausting conversations that we had in this room where we saw the impact in our long-term weighted ADM again last year, and that was due to the Medicaid, direct cert stuff, which really impacted that weighted category for us. So that was part of the driver of last year. But when we look at our 6-year average, you know, taking some of those higher yield years combined with what we've experienced the last 2 or 3 years, our 6-year average has been 2.76%. Now we get into that fun part. So this is based on the most recent, the most current common level of appraisal rates that we have from the state. So when we take our homestead tax rate and layer those in, these are the changes that we're seeing in our 5 various towns.
What is the CLA change in other statewide? Because my understanding of CLA isn't great, but it is the
Oh, it takes a long time.
but generally it's the relative value as compared to assessed value. And so theoretically home prices, which I know isn't accurate, but it should track. And the whole
Seeing if what we're seeing in the district is pretty similar across the state in terms of
because is the CLA across the entire state going down relative to last year? Are we an outlier, or is this just what everyone's seeing and there's something structural?
I would not say we are an outlier.
Yeah, I can share. So Friday at the Champlain Valley Superintendent's meeting, so that's all of Addison, Franklin, and Chittenden County. We were comparing CLA and other budget metrics with each other, and we are in good company. I can't speak to the rest of the state beyond that, but other school boards are looking at similar percentage increases in the tax rates driven by CLA. There are some schools in Chittenden County, some school districts that have a 0 to 2% increase in their district homestead tax rate that are going to see about 30% increase in the effective tax rate after it's adjusted for CLA.
Similarly, amongst our business manager group, we share, high level budget data district to district, and similarly what I'm seeing for the highest percentage change in post CLA tax rates are 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 19, very similar, 29.
Yeah.
And is Jericho the only town in our district that has not yet been assessed? Is that?
I had a sticker on my door about a month ago, so it's happening.
Right. No, but I mean, just looking at the CLA numbers, all the other towns have finished reassessment.
Correct. The most recent was, I don't want to get it wrong.
Just did ours in Huntington.
I was going to guess Huntington.
Richmond and Underhill did it together the same year. Bolton, I don't know, but I thought it was right around the same. Yeah. So it could get wonky depending on when the reassessed value gets put in place too, because we had that happen in Richmond.
Right.
So just, these are estimates.
And another layer of this that is confusing, and I'll use Underhill as an example here. You see the CLA in 26 at 116% and the CLA in 27 at 106%. So CLA of 100% would assume that all of the homes in that town are assessed at fair market value. So this is a little bit tricky to wrap your head around, because you would think as that CLA goes down, gets closer to that 100%, why are we seeing the percentage change in the tax rate so high? But it's due to the change in the CLA. Even though the CLA is moving in the direction you would want it to move in, closer to that 100% number, just that 10% change year over year is what's driving this tax rate so much.
And I think the easy way to think about CLA and the impact of that is it's really about the dollar amount and not the percentage. right? Or the tax rate. So your if this works perfectly, a home with a market value of $500,000 would be taxed the same dollar amount in any of our towns. That's the intention behind all of this. There's some studies that say it works remarkably well. There's always anecdotes that come up where people feel like they've been, they've either made out or been penalized. So I can't really speak to the accuracy of all of it, but just the intent. So the other thing as we end this was really just this commitment or this focus from the finance committee and the administrative team to balanced, efficient budgeting, maintaining our services, and developing long-term plans, not just for capital work, but also for our fund balances, so that we can, when we do have to go out to bond, we can qualify for the best adjusted rate possible, which takes into consideration all the standard measures, but then also they're looking to see healthy fund balances or healthy operating margin. So basically like an annual reserve in your budget, a capital reserve fund, and a fund balance.
So if somebody's watching this and they have questions between now and the next budget presentation, should they email you?
Yes, so I am happy. I've met with some community members for coffee and brought paper versions of my slide and walked through things. I should very shortly have dates for all 5 towns where you can come and see us at your select board meeting. So we're just waiting on one more town, and the plan there is that myself and a board member or more, everyone's welcome, will attend a select board meeting and do an abbreviated version of this presentation and engage in any kind of dialogue that the select board wants to.
They're also welcome to reach out to me if they have questions.
That's true.
Do you want to say your email address out loud?
You can find it on the Mount Mansfield website, also under the business office, but it's nicole.fortier@MMUUSD.org.
And I'm John, JOHN.Muldoon, MULDOON @MMUUSD.org.
Double MW.
Thank you. All right, so board, are there more questions on this? This is a seconded motion. This is our discussion. Are we ready to vote to approve this budget? And where's the slide that has the actual budget amount so we can say that out loud?
The warning is linked.
The warning?
I got it. I'll put it up on the.
So we have a budget of $64,963,496, which is a 5.99% increase over the previous year. Yeah, moved. Oh, it's already moved. So I just have to vote. I just want to make sure that we're ready to.
We have some discussion.
Yeah, that's what I was offering. Is there any discussion before we vote?
I could have some discussion.
I'm listening.
It's only 5 o'clock in the afternoon where I'm at, and so I got all night.
Not funny.
Sorry, I don't have my camera turned on. Yeah, so I was on the finance committee, so I heard all of this before. From my perspective, like personally, this is asking a lot of our community for the second year in a row, and I'm hopeful that our community would support this budget. Why I'm supportive of putting this budget on the ballot is for a couple reasons. One, we have to put a ballot together, pretty soon, so we can meet the time constraints and all of that to get this to a vote. Secondly, it's a budget that doesn't make any significant reductions to the current programming. So as John said, it's a level programming or whatever term he used budget. So you know, if the community says this is too much, they know what they're saying with their vote, and then we can act accordingly. So I want to say appreciate the administration as always in the finance committee to work diligently to get to this point. We're certainly not on a sustainable path. I was a proponent to use some of the available funding that we had to try to bring the budget down a little bit. But the choice of the committee was to save that for a rainier day or in unexpected but potential capital projects that may arise that we don't have budget for. So I'm okay with that. And yeah, it's not something I don't think that we can be like ultra proud of, but it is what it is, and it's going to continue providing the quality education that we have right now, and you know, hopefully the community supports it.
I just want to correct it a little bit, Kevin. It's not a level service budget. It is a roughly 6.5 FTE decrease that they're hoping to be able to cover without decreasing 6.5 full-time staff. Right? They're hoping that there are ways to do that. So there are cuts in this budget. It is not level service. We're being optimistic that we can maintain pretty darn close to level service with this funding.
Yeah. So I mean, that might be your perspective. For me, maybe I'm taking a little bit of rounding, or I'm trusting the administration will be able to figure out some cuts here and there. In the grand scheme of things, 6 FTEs worth of money on a whatever it is. I have my phone, so I can't see the number, but
$65 million budget.
$65 million when the average, you know, so we're talking, you know, we just have to get our pencil out. So for me, I'm looking at it as, for all intents and purposes, a service level funded budget.
Level service. Yep.
Level service budget with a challenge, right? Maybe we can agree that there's a challenge there that we expect the administration to be able to absorb.
Other discussion?
I mean, I'll agree with, you know, Kevin's comment about it's not a sustainable path. I think that this is a budget I certainly support and can support. It is, I think, a reflection of really hard times and situations that are extremely challenging with all the increases. I think it's important for us to think about how this plays out. You know, like Kevin said, I hope the community will support this. But I think moving forward, we really need to ask the community, what is it that we are going to balance here? Can we continue on this trajectory? We know we're going to have to be dealing with some holes that will carry over next year, decreasing discounts. So what is it that our 5 towns, 1 heart is able to look at and really accept it? It seems to me that we're on a path to some kind of change, and what that correction might look like, I really would like the town to be able to weigh in there. So I think, you know, and I don't want to put it on, you know, the community engagement committee as the sort of like primary front on this. So I think it is all of us needing to ask people, where are we heading? But I do, you know, really feel like, you know, John and Nicole did a great job. They took a lot of feedback from the finance committee about how to decrease that increase as much as possible without dramatically cutting services. And I think, you know, the part, John, that you sort of put on the slide about the difference between what an average teacher might cost. It's not as if you can say 6.5 is $600,050 because you are not starting with those high price staff.
Right.
But knowing that 80% of our budget is really in that salaries and benefit piece, I'll just, put it out there that I think that, what seemed to me to be about a $2 million increase in salaries versus $1 million increase in benefits. That is a reflection of we have maybe a senior staff, maybe an expensive teaching community. And what's that? You can't really get to that balance, right? There's no magical formula to say, we're going to have 30% really on the bottom end of the scale, 30% in the middle, 30% at the most expensive. But I do think we're going to have to make some tough decisions in the coming years.
I have a question. I had a community member come to me. They had heard a rumor that where the cuts would actually land. I'm just curious, not looking at FTEs, do you have a sense of where the cuts will occur?
We're trying not to look at FTE, but I think it's inevitable that some of it will land in some staffing category somewhere. Part of making that decision is really going to be waiting to see if we can get some more accurate predictions about enrollment. Also, our number of retirements will impact that. So if, we historically average about 10 retirements a year, typically those 10 staff members are our more expensive staff members. And so, if we have a banner year, then that makes a difference. So I'm not really ready to talk about exactly where that might be just yet. I'm a big fan of not borrowing trouble if I can avoid it.
Mm-hmm. So, but just to answer that question, when people when there are rumors floating or people are making assumptions, they are assumptions because we're looking at a budget with a plan without having all of the information that we need to put it together. And that's just the way we have to do it in this state. And so you can tell them, and anybody who comes to you and says, well, this is what's going to get cut and this is what's going to get cut. And you can say, I hear your concern that that's going to get cut, but we don't have that information yet.
Yeah. And I think also to Edie's point about making the decision about the budget before we have all the information that impacts it, that could really bite us if we do that the wrong way, right? And we actually, that's what happened this year. We were super aggressive with the budget last year, and it came in, it was 1.9 something percentage increase in the budget. And then we had a bunch of unbudgeted expenses that kind of pushed us higher. And so part of the 5.99 for next year is not just our actual cost increase, it's making up for the artificially low budget increase last year. Sure.
We have a shortfall that we have to.
Yeah, to add to the sustainability part of it, I think it's not as bad maybe once you look at it, but it is not sustainable. If we try to build it up, we have a 6% overall budget increase, and as John mentioned, some percentage of that is due to a deficit that we created in the prior year. So that won't happen in the future. So maybe the actual budget's 4 to 5%, which is high but not extreme. But somehow that 6% budget increase results in a 20% property tax increase. And when I say not sustainable, I think that's the part that's not sustainable, is the disparity between how our spending is going and then how the funding is going. And there seem to be, over the years, getting farther and farther apart. And that's where Montpelier needs to help us out. But as we know, there's only a few ways. You can write your legislature, you can run for office, or you can vote. And so a lot of times the voice comes through in the vote because that's the easiest thing one can do.
Look, Kevin, you're spot on, except for one thing, and it's only because I'm a municipal finance geek. The D word is a really dirty word in municipal finance. We had a shortfall, but we did not carry a deficit. So that's just an important distinction to.
I got it. We significantly eroded our surplus.
Any other discussion?
I just think the other piece to this is, and I think going to select boards is really important. Town planning becomes really critical in the future. I think one of the issues that our 5 towns face is that there is just not enough growth to continue to support the district. And we've seen that, significant drop in student numbers. So, I just think we as a school board can do a lot of advocacy around helping our towns grow sustainably, right? Like I'm not looking at, becoming Williston, right? We're not going to be putting up high rises in Huntington, I don't think. Though I'm going to, no. But I do think that is another piece to this picture is how do we draw new people to our town? And also, and I assume even if there is a foundation formula that the weighting would still be in place, that we have to make our community accessible to all income levels, all types of community members, that we can then benefit from some of those additional weights. So it's not just building a $500,000 home, it's being able to bring in housing that is affordable to new home buyers, let people downsize in their older years, whatever that mix is. But that is going to take a push that is beyond our purview. And I think it's an important one.
Yeah. Even the younger teachers being able to live in the district.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of this budget of just under $65 million for the 26-27 school year. I have it open. You have it there. $64,963,496 for the 26-27 school year. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody. Next agenda item is the annual meeting warning, which Article 1 is consistent, Article 2 is consistent, Article 3
Is the change.
is a little bit of a change from previous years. So go ahead.
So this is a discussion with the Finance Committee. Most boards in Vermont over time have moved towards article language that allows either the board or the Finance Committee, depending on their structure, to make a decision with any future year surplus. So you would get to decide historically as a district, because we haven't had this language, we've had to return it to the taxpayers in the form of surplus carried forward as revenue into a future year. That has the effect of buying down the tax rate. We've done that when we've had a surplus. Most districts have language that allows the board to vote and choose to allocate all or some of that surplus to a capital reserve fund so that they use that for future capital projects and facilities. All we've done is add language that will allow you to vote in future years to make that decision. You don't have to make the decision. You can continue past practice, but this article in essence just buys you choices in a future year. The way it works is this Article 3 is written for FY26, and you would apply it in a future year for FY28. Is that right, Nicole?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So FY26 funds would get voted on in FY27 and have an impact, whatever that impact you decide is, in FY28. Given that we're operating with that hole this year, we're not expecting to have a significant dollar amount for you to vote on next year, but getting it on the ballot is still some flexibility. So that's the change.
So that's new. That would be added this year and ongoing. And then just to point out to folks, we're talking about a 5.99% increase in our budget, but the ballot language requires us to have a percent increase in per pupil education spending, which is almost 10%. So our budget is not going up that much, but there is a piece of our budget that is education spending, and that is based a lot in our pupil numbers, which we're working really hard to get them up, and can talk about that in a different meeting. So just want everybody to understand that this is a percentage of our budget that is being looked at for this purpose only. It will be on every ballot across the state. It's required by law.
Did the slideshow say 15,778?
Yes, so there was,
Which one's right?
Based on that long-term weighted ADM, it changed like every other day by the state. This is the accurate one. We just updated it this afternoon. It's good. That's great.
Good count.
yeah.
Gross.
I can barely see from here.
And then,
So it's 1.5 pupils, John was talking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
then we'll have an information meeting on the Monday before town meeting.
And then just the polling places.
Just one, I don't know, but in Article 4, it's just ended with a period. It is a question. The other ones have question marks. I don't know if that's a.
So you know what? That tripped me up too. So Article 4 is actually 2 sentences. So the first one is the question. The second one is the statement.
Got it. Yep.
But I did the same thing.
Thank you.
There's an extra space between school and district too, but only my neurotic eyes will fix that.
If we're copy editing it, the last receipt. Receipt for record 12th day of month, day on the very bottom.
I will. So that is language that is literally cut and paste from
Below.
below.
There.
Okay.
12th day of month.
Day.
Ah.
On the second to last line, received for record this 12th day of month, A20.
On that. Yeah, it must be the second one.
I
Okay.
have to say January there instead of. Okay, any more discussion?
Thank you all.
Just to clarify, sorry, on Article 3, it's at the board's discretion. Is that how we are like having to interpret that? Because when I read it a couple times, I don't know. I felt like it meant we would do this. We would have to do this if the voters voted in favor of 3. But can we make sure that gets somehow clarified? I don't know how to do that, but.
This is language that was written by your attorney. It's the same language for every district that they represent that uses it. And I love municipal finance, but I'm out of my element on the legal language sometimes. This gives you the vote to approve or not approve of an amount for a transfer from your audited general fund balance. So it's still this is all about you having the choice.
Yeah, I mean, that's not how I read it, but I think that's the intent, is to have the choice. I would be a little nervous the way it's written, is somebody would be like, no, I think the board should make that decision when the time comes. I don't want to force them to put that into the capital reserve. But are we, is the board like taking any action or recommendation? Can we add a sentence like the Article 4 that describes this in a little bit more detail? I don't know.
I would be hesitant to add any language to this so I would actually say if you're not certain about Article 3 as a board, that we take it out and vote on it with the articles included, and then we could get additional clarification or even have the board's attorney attend a meeting to explain the language. The timeline unfortunately doesn't give us much flexibility with this.
And this will be in every warning moving forward, right? It's just gonna be.
But we would still have to approve it the same way we're approving this.
Right. If we,
So yeah, I mean, the likelihood of any excess funds from this year is as small as it's ever been. So the risk is small, but if folks are not comfortable, I 100% agree we should take Article 3 out and look at doing that for next year instead.
I don't have a lot of worries. I think probably given that the fact that there's likely to be nothing to transfer, but I do hear what Kevin is saying, that, you know, it almost needs to say, prove the school board's ability to transfer prerogative or there needs to
Yeah,
be.
we can't change the language.
Change it. So it's either,
So we either say, take it out because we're not comfortable with it, or we say, we'll try it and see if if folks, are comfortable.
Yeah, I might have missed a meeting where the first meeting this was brought up, but I don't know if this is the first meeting where this article is being discussed and entertained, and if we're under the gun to get the timeline to get it going, maybe. I mean, I would suggest we take it out. I just don't understand the ramifications of not having it as an article. Like what changes if we don't have this voted yes or no?
Finance and facilities didn't have a conversation about that.
We had a conversation to look at the language for it, and then
Right.
I honestly just got the language this morning from our
Okay.
board's attorney.
Okay.
I feel like we've run into problems in the past when there is excess money and we're limited in how we can use it. So the lawyer says that this is the language that we need, then I would rather keep it in so that we do have more options if there is a surplus.
Yeah, I agree. I read it and it makes sense to me as like I'm reading, like I've read it several times now, and like as a voter, I'd be like, yeah, okay, give the school board, they can transfer the funds. So I don't really see a problem with it.
I think what Kevin is saying is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that this says if there is a surplus, we are going to transfer it into a capital reserve fund. It's not. It's not presented as an option that we get to decide upon.
Yeah, I would just go back to if we're not comfortable with it, I think we should take it out. I can tell you so I looked at, and it was a little, off our attorneys on the call. It was a little frustrating to wait so long to get the language, and it is actually the same exact language my previous district used, which the board did vote to specify certain dollar amounts to be returned to taxpayers and certain dollar amounts to the capital reserve fund. So I've seen it in operation, but this is new for us as a board, so I would defer to your comfort level.
My question, I think, is unanswered is, what happens if this is not on the ballot? What happens if it's voted no? And I think I know what happens if it's voted yes.
So I think what happens now is that we don't have an option if there is money left over. And so this would give us an option, if there is money left over, to still do what we have the ability to do now, which is the money goes back to the taxpayers, or to transfer the money into the capital improvement and operations.
So is it like timing, Edie? Like in the past, before the year ended, we
Yes.
decided to move, but
Yes.
once the year ends, we can't
Once it's
move.
audited, exactly.
This allows us to also move funds after the audit, after the year is closed, which we haven't been able to do in the past. But
That's
we'll continue, if we'll continue to be able to move it to the capital fund, it just has to be before the year end and before the audit completes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
If we didn't previously have an Article 3, do you think taxpayers were aware that we could even give the money back to them?
Realistically, I don't think many people understand the impact of many of the articles. Part of it is because of the language issue just we're having right now. The language isn't always as clear as we would like it to be. I think.
But I guess, but to be really clear, I mean, what Kevin just said, and just to clarify that, is that we have the ability to move this money prior to the year end. So as long as we are aware that there will be a surplus prior to July or June 30th, we can move the money. But after June 30th, are you going to correct me?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. I'm watching your face thinking, am I saying
Deep,
something?
stressful breaths.
Okay. That usually means I'm saying something wrong. So, but so after the fact, we can no longer, we have no more choices. And so we have had years where we have known in advance that we were going to have a surplus, and we have made that part of our final meeting. I think one year we even had a special meeting to do it.
I think so.
So this gives us more flexibility.
How often is it that the finance office would not know about surplus money prior to an audit?
Oh, I mean, usually April, May timeframe, we're kind of looking at an end of year outlook and sharing that with the finance committee. So at that point, barring any crazy unexpected expenses coming in, we have a pretty good idea.
Consistent federal government, things like
Yeah.
that.
I was going to say, in these very certain times.
Very certain time.
I don't think this solves a problem that we're trying to solve. And it just adds another article that we have to go through the, communication engagement process and explanation on. We didn't ask for this. We haven't had a problem. So I don't know why we have it in the,
So the
on the
board
ballot.
leadership has been talking about it for a little while. We haven't talked about it with the full board yet. I thought finance and facilities was having a conversation, but the language wasn't there yet. I'm comfortable removing it if the board isn't comfortable with it. That's it. As I said, this is not the year where this is going to make or break our district. The issue is, as we're budgeting tighter and tighter, without money to go into our capital fund, we want to have the ability to do that because our buildings are older and older every year and need more and more maintenance. And we have more and more opportunity for expensive things to need a fix without planning. And so we just need to be able to prepare for what our district needs. All that said, I'm very comfortable taking Article 3 out.
And also
yeah,
seems
I don't care.
Kyle was going to say.
it seems like if we get a no on this, we are back to what we are currently, and it's questionable. Like we've debated for a while about what this means, and generally, if it doesn't seem super controversial one way or the other, and it'll give us an extra tool in our toolkit, especially as our capital reserves. We're intentionally drawing them down this year, not drawing them down, but not refilling them this year. And that's seems an insurance policy, actually.
Are you advocating for leaving it in the?
Yeah, that seems like a costless insurance. It getting voted down isn't the worst case scenario is status quo. And more questions, but it's technical enough. I doubt we're going to get a lot of deep questions on that.
You know, if you had something you were going to.
Like I think I
You would like to leave it in.
would like to leave it. But if somebody's really feels uncomfortable with it or is worried about something not passing as a result of it, I'm fine with removing it.
It's not me. I'm good with it. I like Kyle's explanation there, and I'm glad we had the conversation about it. Now I understand why it's there, and we can talk to it if we have somebody ask us about it. It gives us one more tool, and we can continue to do what we were doing. And if this gets passed, and if the circumstances make it amenable, then we can move it after the end of the year.
And to maybe just circle back for next warning, if there's a weak in the language, that would make it clear.
So we'd have to warn this. This would be an article that's every year.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the warning as presented?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, we're on the item that is for starting at 7:40 on our.
Is anyone?
Please. Oh, you won't take my.
It's not 7:40?
I'm going to start with, can I get a motion, and then we'll have a discussion after that. Can I get a motion to approve the updated employee unlawful harassment policy? Moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Kyle. Any discussion on this policy? Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just get I had to leave the meeting a little early last time. Can I just get a rundown, just a brief summary of this? Is this just a response to an act and we have to do it type of thing, or is it updating a former policy?
It's both. For you, yeah. So Act 80 extended and clarified several key definitions and things related to harassment in the state of Vermont. And then the VSBA issued the update for model policy based off of that. And so this just reflects the changes to your existing policy required by the Act and language recommended by the VSBA. And I should also say there's no effective change between this and past practice, because historically these additions were covered by federal rules, and so they weren't covered by our previous policy or state rules. But with a change in federal rules, state rules have been changed to fill in that gap.
A long way to go here, so.
Did that answer your question? Yeah, I guess that answered your question. Okay, great. Any other questions? All in favor of approving the updated employee unlawful harassment policy, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, everybody. Do we want to table our policy governance module from the meeting? 100%. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought the chance of having good discussion. Good.
That being said, will it be tabled to the next meeting, which is the one before?
The second January meeting. Okay, tabling the policy governance.
January is going by fast.
Yes.
Didn't even.
There.
So our next agenda item is presentation of key findings from the listening sessions.
Yes, and I can do this briefly because we have time in the next several meetings dedicated to returning to this. So there is an awful lot of data to unpack. And actually, I think the most important thing for me is just starting with this immense gratitude I have. I was completely overwhelmed with the number of people who participated in in-person or online listening sessions and who filled out these surveys. I mean, the response rates for everything exceeded any reasonable expectation, which is incredible. So between multiple different surveys, we had over 1,000 different respondents. And we had more than 200 people show up I say in person, so either online or physically in person for these listening sessions. And actually, if you've been watching the board schedule, you may remember this got bumped back, and it was just because we had so many people willing to engage that we wanted to make sure we had enough time for everyone. So that's it. So this is all of it. This is the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all together. There are a couple pieces that I think I can highlight tonight, and then we can give everyone some time to digest it because there's quite a lot here. The first piece I would say is that student services came up an awful lot in basically every survey and in every listening session. And people are so trusting and appreciative of what their kids get at school, but they are also at the same time kind of mystified by some of the systems that they have to navigate. And it feels very person dependent for them. Like if I can find the right person, I can get what I need, or I can get the information I need, but there's a lack of clarity necessarily that they feel like they need to navigate the system. That was a pretty reoccurring theme related to student services. And then there's some more specific feedback as you go through here about what services feel like at different levels and throughout the system. So that was interesting to me. And I should say, I've also started to, I'm not waiting, we're unpacking all of this with the leadership team and the appropriate groups. So this is something actually our special services team is working on currently. There's a lot of information that I got that I kind of categorize as equity or access. So there's lots, like you saw in the budget presentation. Some of it I think is perception based, like the staffing differences between the schools or things like that. But then there's other really clear kind of legitimate issues that have surfaced here. And one of them that was surprising to me was actually the feedback people gave about what I'm calling like the splitting of catchment areas, right? So I included a quote here from a parent in a listening session who really felt confused about where to enroll their kid, right? So their kid could go to Jericho or could go to Underhill or could go to any of our elementary schools, but the child's social circle got split, and some of them were going to Jericho and some of them were going to Underhill, and the parent was just really upset that, you know, he had this idyllic vision of his kid going to school with all his friends in their local neighborhood school, and felt very much like this decision was forced on their family. And that theme came up over and over again for some communities, right? So Huntington, Bolton, and Underhill, that was a pretty common theme in conversations that we had.
Entering kindergarten?
Yep.
The lifelong friendships of 4-year-olds that.
How much of that is connected with the preschools being cross catchment area?
So it's funny because I originally actually thought it was a Spanish immersion issue, but pre-K location played into it, play groups, and I'm going to say the wrong community, so I won't say it, but like even there's like a soccer group that came up over and over again, like a little tot soccer group, right? And so kids get these social connections and then they get split. And so, you know, to me, I wouldn't have necessarily labeled that as a big issue, but it did come up over and over again in the community as something that families didn't appreciate. So I thought that anything that came up over and over again, I surfaced for you. Not surprising, busing in Huntington came up quite often. So that's in there as well. And then homeschool came up quite a bit. We actually had really great participation from homeschool families, which was an interesting kind of phenomenon. And I think the last thing that I will highlight, or actually I'll highlight two more things. In the facilities section, I'm just going to call attention to something that like it bothered me so much when I read it, but I included it because it came up over and over again. So we know we have old facilities, that's in there, but there's this piece about spaces that have been repurposed for special education services. And the reality is that this is the reality, right? So our buildings were built at a time when we did not offer the level of special education services that we do right now. And so we have repurposed spaces that were not designed originally as classroom or learning spaces for any number of different things, special education services being one of them. And so there's this like heart-wrenching quote that I put in here that captured some of this data that I was getting about a parent that was distraught about the closet that their child was receiving services in. And so I call attention to it just to say that our special ed team is halfway through a facilities audit right now, kind of going through the different classroom spaces that they're using. And there are some spaces that we are changing already as a result of going through that audit. So it's definitely a real issue. And I just wanted to share so that everyone knows that we're taking quick action on that. And then the last one, I guess, that I will highlight for tonight, forever, is just pre-K. Pre-K came up over and over again to the point that I met with our pre-K leadership team and with the teachers and staff, and we conducted an entirely separate survey of families of pre-K age students, and I was blown away. We have 138 pre-K families, over 140 filled out the survey, and that's because we sent it out to families that are pre-K age but not attending our programs as well. We got amazing feedback from them about not just how much they love the programming that we're offering, but the need that is out there in the community related to that. And I think that's actually a really exciting area for us to push forward into and try and innovate. So more to come. Actually, I'll say one more thing. Kevin, I don't know if you remember during my interviews, but you really pushed me on this framework question, and I couldn't have planted it. It's number 7. Over and over again with staff, there was this request for a system or framework to organize the work that we're doing and make sense of all of it. And every time I read one of those comments, I thought of you. So I'm happy to take any questions now. We'll definitely be coming back to this and going deeper in some of these areas, but it was a really great process for me.
Can you tell me what the equity work is? What is that?
Yeah. So we have equity coaches in the district. We have the ABAR group, which is originally started as anti-bias, anti-racism, and the work of that group has morphed into more general equity work over time in some ways. But the kind of constant refrain related to that was that it feels like when we're talking about that as a district with staff, that it's a discrete thing. We're talking about equity. Now we're going to go over here and talk about literacy. And so what staff were really saying is, I would like to talk about equity and literacy at the same time, right? How is that playing out in my classroom when I'm teaching literacy? And so even just in my initial conversations with the coaches, this was a powerful piece of data for them to grapple with and think about.
Just say, thanks for taking the time to do this work and to really dive into it. I think it really has helped inform probably your practice and the direction of the school. And it would be something that would be fairly easy to just kind of, given how busy you are and all the things, to just sort of say, you did it. Really appreciate that you're doing it and living it and breathing it, and we'll continue to circle back to it. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to hearing about this. So when it was finally there, I was like, oh, so excited. I have lots of questions and lots of things to say. I'll hold them for future meetings, but I really appreciated it as well.
For sure, we should dive into this. And I will say my experience, I'm in my second term, is that I think that there's sometimes a tendency to not want to surface a problem until after a solution has been identified, which I think has held us back as a board and our ability to contribute meaningfully. And for the amount of time that we invest in all of this, I know we're all here because we have a desire to contribute meaningfully. So I think it takes a lot of courage to surface
things and say, you know, humbly, like, I don't know what to do about this yet, but we'll figure it out together. So I want to thank you for that. It's very refreshing.
Thanks, Ethel.
And likely empowering to
Yeah.
the staff and the people that work in the buildings.
Yeah.
I see a note on here, something about leaking roofs, and that makes me, it makes me concerned because I'm not aware of leaking roofs in our buildings, and I'm really actually shocked to see it there. And so I'm wondering if our facilities deep dive needs to be deeper. And I know we have that coming up at the next finance and facilities meeting. So I guess just putting that out there for folks, we are going to get more into that. And anytime I see something on one of these that I have absolutely no awareness of at all, I all the red flags go up. And so I appreciate seeing it, right? And would love to, again, yes, talk more about this. I also see this as the beginning, what we're going to use to figure out what our priorities are going forward. And that's really, it's the way that we start working on that. And so I'm grateful to have the information and the data. So thank you.
Maybe just to piggyback on what you said, Edie, just in terms of the budget and the conversations that we're having with our communities, is speaking to aging infrastructure and needs, and that, right, most of our budget isn't even going towards that capital improvement. And John's desire to have a bigger operating budget and a capital reserve to be able to weather those kind of situations.
Just to set people's mind at ease, the leaking roofs when we have roofs near the end of their life is actually a normal thing in a physical plant like we have. We have some leaking in some of our roof areas that we're patching now, and we'll continue to patch until they fail completely. So it's not, I'm sorry if it alarmed anybody, but it's not we don't have roofs failing, but I think students and staff, when they're in buildings and they see any kind of leaking, it feels big.
Sort of like the grease trap, right? When your kid comes home and says, man, the whole school smelled like this today. I do want to hear more about the communication audit, because I can certainly appreciate that the website was universally disliked.
Yeah, that was an easy theme to surface.
But I know, Ray, like you and Nora spent some time digging into that in the future.
It's good.
What are you thinking of, like, maybe not next steps for action items, but like how are we looking at this again? How are we checking up on it in the next couple of meetings or whatever time frame it is?
Yeah, so we have 2 more meetings. One at the next meeting, we're coming back to this in January, and then it's one of the February meetings as well, and maybe we need more time than that. This did take on a little bit of a life of its own, right? We started with a general questionnaire, and then we got deeper in certain areas with different populations, and did some more targeted focus groups with other populations. And so it took much longer actually to get to this. So I'm really now just at the point where I'm starting to work with different teams on getting more clarity and figuring out next steps in some of these areas. Some of them are easier to move on, like the facilities audit for special ed services was that was an easy decision to make very quickly.
That quote is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I guess that's also, it's important to say too, like this whole report is with no judgment. We don't want to vilify the staff member that was doing that. That's what, like, they were using the best space they had access to, right? And it's really on us across the system to make sure that they're not put in those situations.
Great, thank you. So for students too. We all look forward to more discussion on this, and take your time to dive in and come back with more questions and areas where we want to focus our time and energy. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from December 8th, please? Thanks, Sandra. Sorry.
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any discussion on the minutes? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Susan and Allison abstain. Okay. Thank you.
Aaron has a hand raised. Not sure.
I think I'm gonna, if I don't touch on it, Aaron, just give me a second here. I just want to, I know we are going to break for executive session, just for other business while folks are still paying attention. The MMU has an art show at the Jericho Town Hall. Sandra and I were there for the opening event on Saturday. It's really lovely. If you live in Jericho, go. If you happen to be driving through Jericho, the town hall is right on Route 15. It won't take you long, but it's so great to see our students, and some of them that you know have some art that are presented there with some really lovely, funny names. So I appreciated that. And if you need a little flyer, I'm happy to give you this for information on that.
And I could just add, I stayed a lot longer than I thought I would because it was so engaging. How long else there?
Until mid-February.
I think that's right.
So you have a little bit of time, but that's a good question. We mentioned the basketball game. There will be more community events. So please keep your eyes open for things like that. We're in a sports season now that we're coming to playoffs soon, I think. Next month, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. No? Okay. Never mind. I don't know. I'm not really focused.
Just want the season already.
We have a while for that.
Motion starting next week. Which is a really beloved.
Yeah. Connection. Any other business before we?
Did you know that Bernie was showing up, or was this surprise?
So Bernie reached out to the day or so before to coordinate that with our high school. And so there was not a lot of notice.
I do think in the future it'd be awesome if we could get it just as
there wasn't.
No, I know. I'm just saying I would love to know in the future if you have enough time to let us know.
I found out after the fact.
Yeah, me too. But again,
That morning of.
enthusiastic student. That was good.
So we are going to break for executive session. We will come back here to close the meeting, but there will not be any more discussion other than closing out the meeting. So just want to make that we're not making a decision that we have to vote on after the fact. We have a personnel matter to discuss. And I have my cheat sheet on what to do for executive session with me. Erin, do you have a question?
I just wanted to say before you guys cut out that the work that Brett did to make this meeting more visible, and you guys I can hear every word you're saying. It's so beautiful. This is one of the best meetings in a long time. So thank you for that work, Brett. Gold star.
We have some new equipment in the room, so I think it's probably, yes, it's all working really well. So thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate the kudos. And I'm glad you can trust us.
Really hard.
Because I can save my voice. So we have executive session. Turn my glasses on.
You want here? There's readers if you want.
Yeah, that's what I need. Thank you. I need a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel issue. I'm just going to leave it like that. This isn't helping me any more than that.
Make a motion to move into executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, we're going into executive session at 8:50. Thank you, everyone. We have our next meeting January 26th. We're going to vote, don't worry. And the next meeting is at Mount Mansfield High School. But all in favor of going into executive session?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're going to go into executive session. Thank you, everyone.